Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another episode of Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. Today we're going to be taking a look at what many consider to be one of the best Super Nintendo games ever released, something that I would have a hard time disagreeing with, to be honest with you. We are going to be taking a look at Super Metroid, otherwise known, as you can see right there, as the third Metroid game, following the original Metroid on the NES and the sequel that was released on the original Game Boy. So, this is kind of an interesting game for me to have to take a look at, simply because the Metroid games are fairly lengthy and fairly complicated, and they start off kind of slow. And a slow start is not really the most interesting thing to film and commentate over. So I'm going to be starting this with a save just a little bit in from the beginning, just so that we're where the action starts to pick up a little bit. So you won't be seeing the intro or anything like that, but that's easy enough to get. And the reason I'm talking about this right now is that as of this recording, you can currently get this game on the Wii U Virtual Console for 30 cents. This is one of those titles that Nintendo is releasing at a stupefyingly, awesomely low price. And yeah, really everyone should jump on this for 30 cents. It's incredible. It is a game that just oozes production value, and it is really something else, and sort of showing off everything that happens here. So this is really something you should jump on. You can get this on the regular Wii Virtual Console as well, but as usual, the Wii U version is better. And if you don't have a Wii U, damn it, go buy one, because they're really awesome and they're selling like crap right now, and I really want them to do better. So one other thing before we get started here, I'm going to say something not controversial, actually, but something that may shame me in the eyes of many a big-time old-school gamer. I have never finished an older Metroid title. I know, and believe me, that is not for lack of appreciation, because I absolutely love these games. I think they're amazing. I think they're some of the best games Nintendo has ever produced. But I just generally don't tend to play a lot of games like this to completion, and that was definitely the case with these titles back in the day. I got an NES and a Super NES late in their life cycles, though admittedly this was a late game as well. But yeah, I just never finished this completion. The only Metroid game I have actually ever completely finished, though I have played many of them, is, funny enough, Metroid Prime 3 for the original Wii console. I didn't finish either of the other two Prime games, but I did finish that one. But I've played a whole bunch of the Metroid series, and I really like them. It's just, for whatever weird reason, I never ended up finishing them, this included. And that's something I really do aim to correct one day, because damn if these games aren't great. So, for those of you who perhaps didn't grow up in this era, so what I'm showing you here is that this is the Metroid series in general is quite interesting. So you're actually playing a female protagonist named Samus Aran, or Aran, depending on who you ask. And though she is in this suit for most of the games, she is in fact a female protagonist, and that's very cool, because that was, I mean, well, to be frank about it, even in this day and age, that's not very common, which is something that should change. But it was very uncommon back in this era, and I always thought that was a very neat thing that this game featured a female protagonist who ends up doing some very significant and pretty deadly stuff. The Metroid games are very interesting for a number of reasons. So there's that. There is also the fact that they tend to do their storytelling for the most part in a very passive manner. This game has an intro, and it's actually rather verbose, which is rather uncommon. Most Metroid games sort of let the environment do the storytelling for them, which is a really interesting thing. It doesn't really shove any narrative in your face, and yet it still conveys its narrative very clearly. There isn't a lot of sort of draw your own conclusions or, figure things out for yourself type of narratives in these games. They are telling a very specific story, but they don't have to do it with a lot of dialogue or exposition. And that is, well, frankly, not too many people can pull that off. But the guys who did these games are always very, very good at them. There have been some examples. There are other Metroid games. A couple of the Game Boy Advance titles had a bit more verbose storytelling. Metroid Prime 3 had a little bit more characters with dialogue in them, and there was the god-awful Metroid Other M for the Wii, which I would kind of prefer we just don't talk about because it wasn't very good. But yeah, that's very interesting, and also they are... now, open world is not the best way to describe it, but they are games that encourage and reward exploration. You don't have to... there isn't a linear path. You can sort of attack the games in various different ways and progress through the levels in different ways. I'm kind of looking like a bit of an idiot right now because I'm actually kind of stuck already, which is rather hysterical. But so you can approach things in various different ways, and you don't have to get to your objective in the same progression that other people might, which is kind of neat. There are a lot of optional weapon pickups and upgrades for your missile capacity and your energy capacity and things like that you don't have to get to finish the game, but which certainly help. Yes, you need multiple missiles to take out those doors. So here's another thing right here. So you see by coming through here, I got an upgrade. And what is that upgrade? Bombs, which is what we need to progress. And that's the way it works. Is the other main thing about Metroid games is, and this one's actually a little different in that regard, because one of the things that you... Uh-oh. Oh, no. This dude isn't my friend. Not at all. And one of the interesting things about the Metroid series is the way they often work. This series is actually what spawned the term, which a lot of people credit to Giant Bomb. I don't know if they actually invented it, but I'm going to assume they did, called abilities. And what it is that most of the Metroid games start off in such a way where you start with a fully upgraded character and suit. I think I'm going to die here. How embarrassing. Oh, no. Oh, maybe. No. Yes, I am. I think so. Where you will start with a fully upgraded suit. You will have... Ooh, slow down. You will have all the abilities that the game awards you. And you will start off as super mega badass. Unless you're me, in which case you just die because you suck. Yeah, sure. I think I'm going to have to do that whole section again, aren't I? That's unfortunate. These games are fairly punishing, too, in a lot of ways. So you will start off with all of your abilities, and then something usually will happen very early on, probably within the first few minutes, that basically screws you over, takes them all away, and you have to spend the majority of the game earning all your powers back. That's what they mean by abilities, is that the game teases you by going, hey, look at all this cool stuff you have, and oops, sorry, no, you lost it. Not a lot of games do that either, because a lot of people consider that sort of disempowering for the player. If disempowering is a word, I don't know if it is. But this game is a little different compared to a lot of other Metroid Prime titles. This game actually doesn't start you off with everything, because this game actually progresses in terms of narrative. It basically picks up right from where the last Metroid game left off. So Samus doesn't really get any downtime. She's not sort of recuperating, and so here we go. So we took a slightly different path this time, as you can see, and as a result, we unlocked a whole bunch of the local map. So now we can see a bunch of things, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Samus doesn't really have any downtime, so she's starting with nothing right away, rather than starting with everything and then losing it and having to gain it back, which is how a lot of Metroid titles progress. So you are also learning things very early on. I've only been playing this game for a few minutes, and I already earned the Morph Ball, which is this thing here, which allows her to get through tight spaces. And before I kicked the bucket there, before I earned the bomb power up as well. So the game starts to hand things back to you very, very quickly. And it's But that's sort of the way it will go. As you will progress through the game, you will get more powerful missiles, more powerful bombs, you'll get upgrades for your gun, you'll be able to do all kinds of stuff. And all of these things are required to progress through the game. But what I really love about it is that the game is excellent at, while it doesn't force you down a certain path, it will structure the environment and the hazards that are in front of you such that you learn things in a very progressive fashion. Games like Mega Man X also rightly got a lot of credit for this, that rather than having to explain all the mechanics and weapons and interesting bits about the game to you in long, boring tutorials and long bits of exposition where it has to lay everything out and go, here's the amazing history behind all this stuff you got and the canonical reasons why you get it in this way and why you lost it and blah, 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 blah. It just lets it flow naturally. It doesn't explain anything. It's just like, you pick this thing up, and in order to learn how to use it, we're going to put, somewhere in your not necessarily even immediate path, but in your relatively near path, we're going to put an obstacle in front of you that will be like, hey, here's where you need this power for. And they don't even have to say it. They're so good at doing it in just a very organic fashion that you're kind of like, hey, I get it. You just learn it on your own. You don't have to have it explained to you. And that's the best kind of way to teach mechanics to players, in my opinion, because you don't have to... Oh, couldn't get into the ball form quick enough there. I think that's the best way to teach mechanics to a player, because you don't have to... Ooh, you can't hide from that. Because you make the player feel empowered, you make them feel smart because they figured it out, and you don't make them feel patronized. You don't make veteran players in particular who know all this stuff already go, why do you have to spend all this wasting my time teaching me this thing as if I'm some kind of noob who doesn't know what I'm doing? But at the same time, it's so organic that someone who might be newer to video games and doesn't necessarily get by default how this stuff works will feel smart and feel really empowered by the experience. Whoa! And yet they won't feel, aha, got you this time. Alright. Oh, look at all the toys he dropped. Yeah, so the new players will feel empowered, but veteran players won't feel patronized. And man, it is incredible to me. It sounds like such a simple idea, and yet so many game designers, especially in the modern age, especially right now, fail to grasp that concept. And I don't get why that's the case, but there is so much to learn from the Metroid series in that regard. And yeah, as you can see here, I picked up bombs, and look, you want to get out of here? There are rocks that you can't shoot. You got to use bombs. So it just taught you how to do it. How easy was that? How quick was that? And it didn't need a single character of text. Pretty neat, eh? And as you can see here, especially from this outdoor environment and stuff, like these games just are dripping in production value. This is AAA gaming in the Super Nintendo era. The big budget, crazy high production value stuff. So this is your ship here, which you can also use as a save point. The original Metroid had a password save system, which made saving a bit frustrating sometimes. This game, because the Super Nintendo was much more accommodating to that, just has save points. You get to a save point, it saves your data to the cartridge, or to the Wii U memory in this case, as it were, and you just keep going and you come back. And this was, this game for the Super Nintendo was this was top shelf. The production values on this were unmatched. And this game was developed by one of the very well-known internal teams, which was just called Nintendo R&D 1. I know, sexy sounding, right? And it was actually programmed by Intelligent Systems, which is another internal Nintendo studio that went uncredited on a lot of titles. You actually see their name on a lot of modern Nintendo releases. They are actually developing games and releasing them under their own banner now. Intelligent Systems was also the company that developed a lot of the software development kits for Nintendo consoles. The software development kit is the kind of thing where if you are a developer who wants to write games, you buy one of these things, and these are basically the system, but with all the programming tools and other little quirks in that to allow you to actually make games on it as opposed to just play them. So Intelligent Systems developed a lot of that stuff, which means that they had very intimate knowledge of Nintendo hardware and was able to make it do really incredible, crazy things. And that shows in this. I mean, this game pushes the Super Nintendo to its limits in all the best ways. It is gorgeous. It sounds good. It runs really well. It has a little bit of slowdown occasionally, as you saw when I was fighting that boss, but even on the best Super Nintendo games, that was not an uncommon thing. Slowdown was just a way of life, really, back then. And most people didn't care that much, to be honest. I certainly didn't. When you learned to expect it, it was just sort of the way it was. And this is such a gorgeous title. And yeah, as someone. That's what I really like about these games, is that they're very complicated, they are very, very deep, despite having no real directly told story for the most part, aside from the intro in this, which is actually surprisingly wordy. They're able to convey a story that actually has real depth and meaning, and do it in a passive, near silent fashion, which is really brilliant and something few designers are able to do. So this is an energy tank, which basically is going to give me another 99 units of energy, which is your health in this game. Energy tanks and missile upgrades and things like that are scattered throughout the world. Some of them you will generally come across in general, like in that they're unavoidable. But in some cases as well, you'll just run into these by backtracking and searching other areas and things like that. And that's what you'll... Eat missile, you bugger. Yeah, take it. That's how we do things in River City. So, yeah, you will... The storytelling is really good, and it sort of spoon feeds you content, but at the same time does it in a way that is not patronizing and is very engaging. And it's still this is a game that came out in the 90s, and there's still elements of it to this day that modern designers could and should learn from and aren't. if that makes any sense at all. And it's really surprising to me. But the Metroid series as a whole is really fantastic. A lot of people can sort of take or leave the GameCube and Wii series, the Prime series, basically, because it was done by a different developer. It was done by an American team as opposed to a Japanese team. And they're first-person games. I call them first-person platformers because while they do have combat in them, the controls for those games are very different, and they don't play at all like a traditional first-person shooter, like a Call of Duty or a Halo or a Battlefield or something like that. They are very, very different in terms of the way they control and the way they play. They are about exploration more than combat, though combat is a very heavy focus. But that's what I thought was cool about that series, too, is that they maintain the interesting elements of these side-scrolling games, but did it in a first-person perspective in a way that worked really well, which was cool. And you can see one of the interesting elements about that here, about how this is almost sort of an open-world type thing, is there were 4 different doors there that I could go through, and I can choose to attack those in any order. And how I attack those will determine what I get. I could go through them all. I may not have to go through them all. If I choose not to, that's fine. But you see, by taking this one, we got more map data. So now you can see by looking here, you can see the S's, which is showing additional save points, which I haven't discovered yet. But now I know where they are, so if I want to go save, I can do that fairly quickly. I didn't have to go through there. I could have skipped that area entirely, could totally finish the game without it. But because I took the time to explore, I found something that was ultimately very useful to me. So these games really reward patience, but they do not require it. which is also really neat. Most games have a strictly linear progression, which is, oi, here's your route. You got to take this route or you can't progress. Whereas this one's like, we do have a route that you have to follow if you want to finish this, but if you really want to take your time and look around and search for things, you'll get stuff like a missile upgrade. So now, there we go. I now have more missiles. Well, I don't actually because I ran out of missiles, but there we go. I can now carry more than 5. Which, again, don't need them. Can finish the game without them, but it's way more helpful. There are also puzzles in the game like this. So you can see I can't actually jump when I'm in morph ball form, but if I put a bomb, not only does the bomb not hurt me, but it catapults me up. And there are times in the game where that will actually be required in order to move on. You'll have to time yourself and time your jumps with the bomb such that you get where you are and that you don't fall through the floor like a twit. And that's the cool thing about this series, is they just did... These games have... So many games generally rely on taking one or two mechanics and making them the central focus and saying, okay, you want to progress, you got to do these things, and these are the 2 or 3 things you're going to do, where you know, they usually front load them with heavy, overly complicated, overly verbose tutorials, and they say, this is what you're going to be doing through the whole game. You sort of learn up front everything you're going to do. But if you go into a Metroid game cold, now the one thing is that every game in the Metroid series does tend to rely on the same mechanics. Like everything I'm showing you here, you'll kind of find this or slight variants thereof in every Metroid title. So if you played one, you get the idea of playing them all, really. You see, here's another unique one. You got these firefly enemies here, which you don't actually have to kill, and if you do, you make the area darker. It makes progressing a little more interesting. So the mechanics are sort of all the same. So this is just a missile recharge station. The mechanics are all the same throughout the series, but the progression of this is the same. There are a lot of different mechanics in play in this game. You're actually juggling quite a few things. But it dishes them out to you slowly enough and organically enough that by the time you reach a point in the game where you need to be juggling multiple mechanics, you've got them all down pat and you understand how they work. So you're not going to get to an area and go, oh god, what do I do here? I don't remember what I have to do to progress here. I don't remember which things, because it's all been laid out to you and you're just like, oh yeah, it taught me this. So I'll drop a bomb here, I'll shoot a missile here, and I'll use this other kind of beam weapon here, and you know, there we go. We move, you know, we get through it. And that is good game design. That is arguably near perfect game design. And not many people get it, but Nintendo did. And that's one of the reasons that this series is so well regarded. They don't pump out Metroid games like they do Mario games, or in some cases even Zelda games. But Metroid games always are remembered fondly. They're, with the exception of Other M, which... Other M. Metroid games as a whole are usually very fondly regarded because they're just always super solid, super polished, and they do what they do better than just about anyone. And this is a good example for that. It is on my long-term pile of shame to finish, not necessarily the original NES Metroid. That game was pretty punishing in terms of its difficulty. This one definitely takes it a little bit easier on you, but it plays, the mechanics are tighter, it definitely plays much, much better, it's easier to get into. It is on my long-term pile of shame to finish this game one day. I would like to do that. And really, the Wii U Virtual Console Edition is the way to play it far and away. It looks great, it plays really well, and on the Wii U you get a little bit of... You get a little bit of HD upscaling, which is nice. This is a great game to use the off-TV play through the Wii U gamepad as well, because it is a long game. You will sometimes... The one thing that can frustrate people sometimes is you can get stuck in this game trying to figure out where you have to go next. The game doesn't handhold you. It doesn't put a big... Sometimes you will get a dot on your map that says here's kind of where your next objective is, but oftentimes you'll have a rather complicated route to get there. Oh, jeez. I was hurting more than I thought I was. You'll often have a more complicated route to get there than you might think. And sometimes you'll get stuck. So off-TV play is really good for that, because you can sort of sit there and work on this while someone else uses the TV maybe or whatnot. And though the proper way to play this is to use the save stations that are, you know, pre-laid out for you as I'm showing you there, having the ability to do that and do your restore point creation where you can sort of quit out anytime you want is a nice little bonus as well that you couldn't get normally on the standard Super Nintendo game. But yeah, this is fantastic, and I'm actually having a ton of fun with this already. I definitely want to sit down and finish this someday. Don't know if I'm going to be able to do it anytime soon, because this definitely is a game that requires many hours. It is not a short game, and that's the other thing. Even at full, this is one of those games where even at full price on the Wii U, and I've already ranted in other videos about how the Wii U Virtual Console pricing is ridiculous and way too expensive. This is one game that's worth it, because not only is it a AAA gem from Nintendo's past, it's long. It can be very long, and the value proposition I think is much better in a game like this, where you may have to spend quite a number of hours working on it. Oh god. And right now, man, it's 30 cents. It's 30 bloody cents, people. I mean, like you can't buy a Timbit. Yes, I'm Canadian, deal with it. You can't buy a Timbit for 30 cents, I don't even think. And one of Nintendo's arguably best games for 30 cents. Seriously, go out and get it if you have a Wii U, and if you don't have a Wii U, start supporting awesome things and buy a Wii U, and then buy this game, because it's great. But that is Super Metroid, published by Nintendo and developed by Nintendo R&D 1 and Intelligent Systems for the Super Nintendo in 1994. It is on the Wii Virtual Console and the Wii U Virtual Console, presently 30 cents on the Wii U Virtual Console, which means that it is a no-brainer. One of the best games for the Super Nintendo. To many people, one of the best games ever made. And there's a case to be made for both. It's a classic and something anyone who wants to become literate on really good game design should check out. My name has been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.